Our little suburban paradise seemed perfect at first. My wife, Sarah, and I had scrimped and saved for years to buy our dream home in the Willow Creek Estates. It wasn't a mansion, but it had a big backyard, a perfect spot for our dog, Buster, to run around, and plenty of space for a garden. The house was a charming two-story colonial with a wide front porch, just like I always imagined. One of the things that initially attracted us to Willow Creek was the Homeowners Association, HOA. We thought it would keep the neighborhood looking nice and protect our property values. The welcome packet was filled with promises of well-maintained common areas, community events, and a commitment to preserving the neighborhood's aesthetic appeal. Mr. Henderson, the HOA president, greeted us with a warm smile and assured us that Willow Creek was a place where neighbors looked out for each other. We went to a couple of the early HOA meetings, mostly out of curiosity. They seemed well organized, and the other residents appeared friendly. There were discussions about landscaping guidelines, holiday decorations, and the annual neighborhood picnic. Sarah even volunteered to help with the picnic, making her famous potato salad. Everything seemed so idyllic, a far cry from the chaotic city life we had left behind. We felt like we had finally found our forever home, a place where we could settle down and raise a family in peace and quiet. Little did we know, the peace wouldn't last long. The smiling faces and promises of community harmony were just a facade, hiding a brewing storm that would soon turn our dream into a nightmare. The first crack in our idyllic facade appeared subtly. It started with a letter about our lawn. Apparently, it wasn't green enough. The HOA guidelines specified a particular shade of green, and ours, according to them, was a few shades too light. It seemed ridiculous. I had been watering and fertilizing regularly, but Mr. Henderson insisted we use a specific brand of lawn fertilizer, available, of course, at the local garden center he conveniently owned. Then came the issue with Sarah's rose bushes. She had planted a beautiful row of them along the front of the house, a riot of colors that brightened up the whole street. But the HOA claimed they were non-approved flowers and demanded we remove them. Sarah was heartbroken. She had spent weeks carefully tending to those roses. After a heated discussion, we managed to compromise. We could keep the roses, but they had to be pruned to a certain height and a specific type of mulch had to be used around them. These incidents, while seemingly minor, started to chip away at our initial enthusiasm. The HOA's rules felt arbitrary and controlling. It felt like they were more concerned with enforcing petty regulations than fostering a sense of community. We started avoiding the HOA meetings, dreading the constant scrutiny and nitpicking. We weren't alone. Other neighbors started complaining about similar issues, the color of their mailbox, the type of Christmas lights they used, even the length of their grass. A sense of unease settled over Willow Creek. The friendly smiles started to fade, replaced by wary glances and hushed conversations. We knew something bigger was brewing, a confrontation that would test the limits of our patience and challenge the very foundation of our dream home. The landscaping disputes were just the appetizer. The main course was a full-blown property line dispute that left us reeling. One morning, we woke up to the sound of heavy machinery next door. A crew was tearing up the grass along what we believed was our property line, right next to the fence we had installed when we moved in. I rushed outside, my heart pounding in my chest. "What's going on here?" I demanded. The foreman, a burly man with a clipboard, just shrugged. "HOA's orders. We're putting in a new community green space." "Community green space?" I sputtered. "That's my yard." He pointed to a set of stakes that had been driven into the ground, clearly inside our fence line. "According to the HOA, this is common property." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I ran inside and grabbed our property survey. According to our documents, the land they were tearing up was indeed part of our lot. I marched back outside, waving the survey in the foreman's face. "This proves it. This is my property." He just smirked. "The HOA has a different survey," he said, "and their lawyers say they have a right to do this." Mr. Henderson, the HOA president, arrived on the scene, wearing a smug grin. "We've discovered a minor discrepancy in the original property lines," he announced, as if he were delivering good news. "This area has always been intended for community use." Sarah joined me, her face pale with anger. "You can't just take our land," she cried. "We paid for this." Henderson just shrugged again. "We're acting in the best interests of the community," he said. "You'll thank us later." That was it. That was the moment I knew we were in for a fight. They weren't just being petty, they were trying to steal our property. And I wasn't about to let them get away with it. Our first instinct was to reason with them. We tried attending the next HOA meeting, armed with our survey, our mortgage documents, and a carefully prepared speech. We presented our case, calmly and logically, explaining why we believed the land was rightfully ours. Mr. Henderson listened with a condescending smile, then dismissed our arguments with a wave of his hand. He claimed the HOA's survey was more recent and accurate, and that an obscure clause in the HOA agreement gave them the right to reclaim land for community use. The other HOA board members echoed Henderson's sentiments, their faces cold and unsympathetic. It was clear they had already made up their minds. Our neighbors, the ones who had previously complained about the HOA's petty rules, sat in silence, afraid to speak out against the powerful board. We left the meeting feeling defeated and frustrated. It was like talking to a brick wall. Our next step was to consult with a lawyer. We found a reputable real estate attorney who reviewed our documents and listened to our story. He confirmed that we had a strong case, but warned us that a legal battle with the HOA could be long, expensive, and emotionally draining. He explained that the HOA had deep pockets and could drag the case out for years, potentially bankrupting us in legal fees. He also pointed out the obscure clause Henderson had mentioned, a vague and poorly worded provision that could be interpreted in different ways. While we had a good chance of winning, there were no guarantees. The thought of spending our life savings on lawyers and court fees was terrifying. We felt trapped, caught between a rock and a hard place. The HOA had all the power, and we were just a couple of homeowners trying to protect what was rightfully ours. It seemed like an impossible situation. "There has to be another way," Sarah said one evening, after another sleepless night spent agonizing over the situation. "We can't afford to fight them in court, but we can't just let them steal our land either." I had been racking my brain for alternatives, desperate to find a solution that wouldn't bankrupt us. That's when the idea hit me. It was crazy, audacious, and possibly completely insane, but it was the only thing I could think of that might actually work. "We're going to build a wall," I announced. Sarah looked at me like I had lost my mind. "A wall? What good will that do?" "It will clearly mark our property line," I explained. "It will send a message to the HOA that we're not backing down. And it will be a physical barrier that they can't ignore." "But they'll just sue us for violating some obscure building code," Sarah protested. "Maybe," I said, "but by then, we'll have already made our point. And who knows, maybe it will even inspire others to stand up to them." We spent the next few days researching local building codes and property line regulations. We discovered that we were legally allowed to build a fence or wall on our property, as long as it met certain height and material restrictions. We decided to build a sturdy, 6-foot-high wooden fence, right along what we believed was the true property line, the one indicated in our original survey. It wouldn't be just any fence, it would be a statement. A bold, defiant statement that said, "This is our land, and we're not giving it up without a fight." It was time to take matters into our own hands and show the HOA that we weren't going to be bullied. It was time to build a wall. The next weekend, we started building. I rented a post-hole digger and spent hours digging deep, perfectly aligned holes along the property line. Sarah helped me mix the concrete and set the posts, ensuring they were plumb and secure. It was backbreaking work, but we were fueled by a righteous anger and a determination to reclaim our land. As the wall began to take shape, word spread quickly through the neighborhood. Some neighbors offered their support, bringing us cold drinks and words of encouragement. Others watched from their windows with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, unsure of whether to get involved. A few, presumably loyal to the HOA, glared at us with disapproval. Mr. Henderson, of course, was furious. He stormed over to our property, his face red with rage. "You can't do this," he shouted. "This is a clear violation of HOA regulations. I'm going to have you fined. I'm going to have you shut down." I calmly showed him the building permit we had obtained from the city, proving that we were in compliance with all local codes. "We're not breaking any laws, Mr. Henderson," I said. "We're simply building a fence on our property." He sputtered and fumed, but there was nothing he could do. He knew we had done our homework and that he couldn't legally stop us. As the wall grew taller, it became more than just a fence. It was a symbol of defiance, a testament to the power of ordinary people standing up to injustice. It was a beacon of hope for those who felt oppressed by the HOA's heavy-handed rules. And it was driving Mr. Henderson absolutely crazy. The wall was working. With the framework complete, we began adding the wooden planks, carefully nailing each one into place. The wall was solid, sturdy, and undeniably visible. As it rose higher, more and more neighbors started to offer their help. Old Mr. Peterson, who lived across the street, brought us homemade lemonade. The Millers, whose mailbox had been deemed too whimsical by the HOA, helped us stain the wood a rich, dark brown. Even some of the more hesitant neighbors started to chip in, bringing tools, offering advice, and sharing stories of their own frustrating encounters with the HOA. The wall was becoming a community project, a symbol of solidarity against a common enemy. We started calling it the Wall of Willow Creek, a playful but defiant name that stuck. We even had T-shirts printed with the slogan, "I support the wall." Mr. Henderson, meanwhile, was losing his mind. He tried everything he could think of to stop us. He sent us threatening letters, accusing us of violating obscure building codes. He called the city inspectors, hoping to find some technicality that would force us to tear it down. He even tried to bribe the construction crew to sabotage the project. But nothing worked. We had dotted our I's and crossed our T's. We were completely within our rights. The more frustrated Henderson became, the more determined we were to finish the wall. It wasn't just about the property line anymore, it was about standing up to bullies, fighting for what's right, and protecting our community from overreach. The Wall of Willow Creek was a testament to the power of collective action, a reminder that even a small group of determined individuals can make a big difference. And we were just getting started. With the Wall of Willow Creek nearing completion, we decided it was time to celebrate our progress and send another message to the HOA, we weren't going anywhere. We announced a block party, cleverly titled, Block the HOA, to be held the Saturday after the wall was finished. The invitation was simple but direct, join us for food, music, and fun as we celebrate community and stand up to HOA tyranny. All are welcome, except the HOA board. We distributed flyers throughout the neighborhood, posted announcements on social media, and even created a Facebook event page. The response was overwhelming. People were eager to show their support and let loose after months of tension and frustration. Sarah, a natural organizer, took charge of the planning. She delegated tasks to different neighbors, ensuring everyone felt involved. The Millers volunteered to handle the music, promising a playlist of upbeat tunes that would get everyone dancing. Old Mr. Peterson offered to bake his famous apple pies. Mrs. Davis, who had been fined for having a non-approved garden gnome, volunteered to decorate the street with colorful balloons and streamers. The atmosphere in Willow Creek was electric. The block party was more than just a celebration, it was a declaration of independence. We were taking back our community, reclaiming our sense of belonging, and sending a clear message to the HOA that we wouldn't be silenced. We were ready to party, and we were ready to make some noise. The HOA was in for a rude awakening. The day before the block party was a flurry of activity. Tables and chairs were borrowed from neighbors and set up in the street, blocking off a section of Willow Creek. The Millers arrived early with a state-of-the-art sound system, promising to keep the music pumping all afternoon. Mrs. Davis and her team of gnome-loving rebels strung colorful banners and balloons from every lamppost and tree. Food was everywhere. There were grills sizzling with burgers and hot dogs, tables laden with salads and side dishes, and coolers overflowing with ice-cold drinks. Sarah, of course, was making her famous potato salad, a crowd favorite that always disappeared within minutes. Old Mr. Peterson's apple pies were arranged on a separate table, each one a masterpiece of flaky crust and sweet filling. We even set up a kids' zone with games and activities to keep the little ones entertained. There was a bouncy house, a face painting station, and a water balloon toss. The kids were just as excited about the party as the adults, eager to celebrate their newfound freedom from the HOA's strict rules. The only thing missing was the HOA board. We made sure they didn't receive an invitation. We wanted them to see what they were missing, to witness the joy and unity they had tried so hard to suppress. We wanted them to understand that Willow Creek was more than just a collection of houses, it was a community, and we were taking it back. Everything was in place. The stage was set. The only thing left to do was wait for the party to begin and watch the HOA's reaction. We knew they wouldn't be happy. The HOA block party was an immediate success. As the afternoon sun warmed Willow Creek, neighbors poured out of their houses, drawn by the infectious music and the aroma of grilled food. Laughter filled the air as children ran through the street, their faces painted with colorful designs. Adults mingled and chatted, sharing stories and celebrating their newfound sense of community. The Millers' music selection was perfect, a mix of classic rock and feel-good pop that had everyone tapping their feet and singing along. The food was a huge hit, with Sarah's potato salad disappearing within minutes and Mr. Peterson's apple pies earning rave reviews. Even the most reserved neighbors were letting loose, dancing in the street and joining in the water balloon toss. But the real highlight of the party was the look on the HOA board's faces. They stood on the edge of the festivities, their expressions a mixture of bewilderment and outrage. Mr. Henderson's face was a particularly sight to behold, his usual smug grin replaced by a thunderous scowl. They clearly hadn't expected such a large turnout, or such a display of defiance. They looked like they had crashed a party where they were definitely not welcome. They tried to blend in, to act as if they were just curious onlookers, but everyone knew who they were. People pointed and whispered, some even openly laughing at their discomfort. It was clear that their authority was crumbling, their power base eroding before their very eyes. The HOA block party was more than just a celebration, it was a revolution, a turning point in the battle for Willow Creek. And the HOA was losing. The HOA board, however, wasn't about to let us have our fun without a fight. About an hour into the party, Mr. Henderson approached me, his face red with fury. "This party is in violation of several HOA regulations," he declared, his voice trembling with anger. "You're exceeding the noise level limit, you haven't obtained the proper permits for a street closure, and you're serving alcohol without a license." I calmly pulled out a folder containing copies of all the necessary permits and waivers. "We've taken care of everything, Mr. Henderson," I said, holding up the documents. "We're in full compliance with all local laws and HOA regulations." He sputtered and stammered, clearly caught off guard. But the noise," he protested. "It's disturbing the peace." "It's a block party, Mr. Henderson," I replied. "People are having fun. If you don't like it, you're welcome to leave." He stormed off, muttering about calling the police. A few minutes later, a police car pulled up to the edge of the party. The officer approached me and asked if there were any problems. I explained the situation, showed him our permits, and assured him that we were keeping the noise level reasonable. The officer smiled. "Looks like everyone's having a good time," he said. "Just keep it down after 10 p.m. He got back in his car and drove away, leaving Mr. Henderson and the HOA board fuming in the distance. Their attempts to shut down the party had failed miserably. They were out of options, out of ideas, and out of control. And we were just getting started. The party continued late into the night, a testament to the resilience and spirit of the Willow Creek community. The HOA's power was waning, and a new era was dawning. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the wall of Willow Creek, a local news van pulled up to the curb. A reporter, armed with a microphone and a camera crew, approached me with a curious smile. "We heard you're having a bit of a disagreement with your HOA," she said. "Mind telling us about it?" I gladly obliged. I recounted the story of the stolen property line, the petty regulations, and the HOA's attempts to silence our community. I showed her the property surveys, the threatening letters, and, of course, the wall of Willow Creek, a physical manifestation of our resistance. Sarah and several other neighbors chimed in, sharing their own experiences with the HOA's overreach. Mrs. Davis proudly displayed her non-approved garden gnome, while the Millers cranked up the music, providing a soundtrack to our rebellion. The reporter was captivated. She interviewed Mr. Henderson, who tried to defend the HOA's actions, but his arguments sounded weak and unconvincing compared to the passionate voices of the community. The news crew filmed the entire scene, capturing the joyous atmosphere of the block party and the palpable sense of unity among the neighbors. The story aired on the local news that evening, highlighting the HOA's heavy-handed tactics and the community's courageous stand against injustice. The wall of Willow Creek became a symbol of hope for homeowners everywhere who were struggling against oppressive HOAs. The story went viral, spreading like wildfire across social media. The HOA's overreach was now public knowledge, and their reputation was in tatters. We had taken our fight to the airwaves, and we were winning. The aftermath of the news story was swift and brutal. The HOA's phone lines were flooded with angry calls from homeowners across the state, demanding answers and accountability. Social media exploded with criticism, with the hashtag Wall of Willow Creek trending nationwide. People shared their own horror stories of HOA overreach, turning the spotlight on the broader issue of homeowner rights and the abuse of power by unelected boards. The HOA's Facebook page was bombarded with negative reviews and scathing comments. Someone even created a parody account called Mr. Henderson's Garden Gnome Emporium, featuring pictures of gnomes being smashed with hammers. The pressure was mounting. Even within Willow Creek, the tide had turned decisively against the HOA. Neighbors who had previously been afraid to speak out now openly criticized the board's actions. A petition calling for the resignation of Mr. Henderson and the entire HOA board circulated through the neighborhood, gathering signatures at an astonishing rate. The local government even got involved, launching an investigation into the HOA's financial practices and its interpretation of the property line agreement. It was clear that the HOA's days of unchecked power were numbered. The wall of Willow Creek had not only marked our property line, it had also drawn a line in the sand, separating the old guard from the new. The community had spoken, and their message was clear: enough was enough. It was time for change, and it was time for reform. The HOA's reign of terror was coming to an end. Faced with mounting pressure and a rapidly deteriorating public image, the HOA finally reached out to us, offering to resume negotiations. But this time, the tone was very different. Mr. Henderson, no longer smug and condescending, was now contrite and apologetic. He claimed the HOA had only been trying to act in the best interests of the community and that they were willing to consider alternative solutions to the property line dispute. We agreed to meet, but this time, we came prepared. We brought our lawyer, several supportive neighbors, and a list of demands that went beyond just the property line issue. We insisted on a formal apology from the HOA, a commitment to revising the HOA agreement to prevent future abuses of power, and the resignation of Mr. Henderson as president. The negotiations were tense but productive. The HOA's lawyer, realizing the severity of the situation, advised them to concede on most of our demands. They agreed to recognize our original property line, compensate us for any damages we had incurred, and revise the HOA agreement to include more homeowner protections. They also agreed to hold a new election for the HOA board, giving the community a chance to choose new leadership. Mr. Henderson, however, refused to resign. He clung to his position, insisting that he had done nothing wrong. But the other board members, sensing that his presence was only prolonging the crisis, voted to remove him from office. It was a sweet victory, a testament to the power of perseverance and community action. The HOA was finally ready to listen, and we were finally ready to make our voices heard. The tide had turned, and Willow Creek was on the path to a brighter future. The final agreement was a complete victory for us and for the community. We retained our property, with the HOA formally acknowledging our original property line and promising never to challenge it again. The HOA agreed to pay for a new survey to clarify the property lines for all homeowners in Willow Creek, ensuring that no one else would have to go through what we did. The HOA agreement was revised to include clearer guidelines for landscaping, architectural changes, and dispute resolution, preventing the board from arbitrarily enforcing rules or making decisions without community input. A homeowner's Bill of Rights was added to the agreement, guaranteeing residents the right to due process, transparency, and fair treatment. The new HOA board, elected by the community, was composed of neighbors who were committed to serving the best interests of Willow Creek, not their own agendas. They pledged to be more responsive to homeowner concerns, to communicate openly and honestly, and to foster a sense of community and collaboration. The community green space that the HOA had tried to build on our property was abandoned. Instead, the area was transformed into a community garden, where residents could grow their own fruits, vegetables, and flowers. It was a symbol of renewal, a testament to the power of community to transform adversity into opportunity. Willow Creek was finally a place where neighbors looked out for each other, where voices were heard, and where everyone had a say in the future of their community. The nightmare was over, and our dream home had finally become a reality. The wall of Willow Creek remained standing, not as a barrier, but as a reminder. It stood as a symbol of what a community can achieve when it unites against injustice. It was a testament to the power of ordinary people to challenge authority, to stand up for what's right, and to protect their homes and their community from overreach. People from all over the country contacted us, seeking advice on how to fight their own HOAs. We shared our story, offering encouragement and practical tips on organizing, negotiating, and using the media to amplify their voices. We became accidental advocates for homeowner rights, helping others navigate the complex and often frustrating world of HOAs. The wall of Willow Creek even inspired a local artist to create a mural on a nearby building, depicting scenes from our struggle and celebrating the spirit of community empowerment. The mural became a popular tourist attraction, drawing visitors from far and wide who came to admire the artwork and learn about the story of Willow Creek. Years later, the wall of Willow Creek still stood tall, a proud symbol of our victory. It was a reminder that even small voices can make a big difference, that even the most powerful institutions can be challenged, and that even in the face of adversity, hope can prevail. Willow Creek was no longer just a neighborhood, it was a community, united by a shared sense of purpose and a commitment to protecting their freedom and their way of life. And it all started with a wall. A wall that didn't divide us, but brought us together. A wall that symbolized our strength, our resilience, and our unwavering belief in the power of community. A wall that proved that even a stolen property line can be reclaimed with courage, determination, and a little bit of potato salad.